Hello, I'm David Domke. I'm chair of the Department of Communication at the University of Washington. We've started a series where I do what are called chair chats. They're conversations with faculty, alumni, students, other people who are involved with the Department of Communication, where I just sit down with them and we talk for a few minutes about some project or some experience that they're involved with. I'm joined today by a professor colleague of mine, Kathleen Fearn-Banks. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you.
And Kathleen has just published a second edition of a book that she's worked on with a colleague. And the title of the book is The Historical Dictionary of African American Television. And this is what the new cover looks like. And this is just, you can see, a very thick book. It's just a comprehensive compilation of the history of African Americans in and on television in the United States, and I suspect beyond that. So what I wanted to talk to Kathleen about was just to tell us a little bit about the book and why you wanted to do the book and what it kind of provides for people. So where did this book idea come from?
Okay, first of all, Rowman and Littlfield, the publishers, do a series of historical dictionaries on almost every subject there is. So there was an email that circulated among the MAC division of AJMC, that's Minorities in Communications, and email saying that they wanted to do some books on the arts of ethnic groups. And they mentioned television, theater, cinema, etc. And so when I saw that email, immediately I said, I don't want anybody else to do that book. And so I immediately emailed the publisher and told them who I was and what I wanted to do, and he almost as immediately emailed me back and said, fine. And so they sent me a contract, and that was it.
Now, you were personally connected and professionally involved with several of the entries in this book.
Well, see, that was the thing. First of all, when I was a kid, television began, network television began, and I looked at everything that there was on TV, as did everybody who was a kid at the time television started. And then when I started to work at NBC Television in 1969, I had to know everything about television. You have to know not only about your own network, but what's on TV everywhere.
Sure.
So I felt like I knew the first 50 years of television, and that's what was in the first edition. So I had to research, of course. I didn't know everything, but I had an inkling of everything that was on. And it was not as difficult the first 50 years because for a large period of that time, there were only 3 networks. And those others were added while I was at NBC, but so much has happened since I've been at University of Washington. And so the last edition here was a big job of research.
And how is the book organized? I see there's by names, by titles of shows, by networks, by institutions, right?
Right, and by issues that were faced in African American television, like shows on interracial marriage, shows on Martin Luther King, I think that's in there. Certainly shows that were aired during February, which is called African American History Month. We have all of these things and classifications and genres within the African American television.
Sure.
Thing. Right.
And so is this a book that essentially is a it's an encyclopedia for people who have an idea or have heard of something and want to go learn something more about, as a starter place for deeper information.
Yeah, precisely. You seek it for information, although a lot of people have told me with the first edition that they just like to sit down and read it, which was good news for me, that people enjoyed doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly been my experience with it, looking through it. This was like a walk down memory lane for some of my shows. The Jeffersons and Good Times and What's Happening, The White Shadow. These are all shows that I watched with my dad or with my brothers and sisters growing up, right? So is there a perspective in the book that you're suggesting, like these were good, they weren't as good as they could have been, or is it just kind of more of a these were there?
Mostly these were there. Now, at some point, I included criticism. There were some shows, for example, that were canceled because of concern of the African American community.
I see.
And so I said so in that case. But I did not personally take a stand ever in the book.
And those were canceled, for example, because of stereotypical portrayals?
Yes, absolutely. Almost totally that was the reason. The most famous one would be the series Amos and Andy, which was on early television. I think it began in 1951, which is when television began, right after the coaxial cable was completed that connected the whole country for television. And Amos and Andy was very funny. And however, it was the only thing on television that depicted African Americans in life, and the characters were very negative. Let's just say negative. And it would have been all right today, which is odd, because you would have to balance that off with, we have characters now who are presidents of the United States and characters who are judges and lawyers. But at that time, it was like, this is what African Americans are like. NAACP couldn't take that, so they objected, and it was eventually canceled, which was sad for the actors on the show who I talked to at some time. They're all dead now, but I talked to them, did an article for Ebony magazine once, and I talked to those who were surviving at the time, and they talked about how they fought for dignity, and that there were certain things about their characters that they hung on to, even though the characters were portrayed as being negative, but they themselves were not. And they spoke the King's English, almost all of them, but they had to speak in dialect for the TV show.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And what would you say is kind of why is it important to have this book, A Dictionary of African American Television?
I think it's important for people in the future, from now and to the future, to know what has happened in the past. There will be no other way. Why is history important at all? Why is it important for anything? By the way, there are hundreds of historical dictionaries of almost everything that there is. And that's what Rowman and Littlfield wanted to do. And it's just kind of creating a history of the world in every aspect that we can think of.
Yeah.
And that one's special to me because it was part of my life for so long. Yeah.
So I'm just really interested, maybe to wrap up this conversation, what does this book mean to you personally and professionally to kind of look at it and to say, this is, I'm an author. I'm the first author, lead author on this incredible volume.
Well, first of all, it's the satisfaction of having it done, which was quite a feat both times, first edition and second. It was also something that I don't normally do because television is not my field in academia. It's crisis communication. So it's that satisfaction of having an experience outside of my primary research source. There are no real crises involved in doing that book. And the next thing is my partner on the book, Ann Burford Johnson, who is a friend of mine who has been in executive positions in television. And she hasn't had the opportunity to have her name on a book, and so she is more active in television right now than I am, and to do this with her was quite good. She's still in Los Angeles, so it helped me a lot to have her there and to be able to have personal contact with people that I didn't have time to have contact with.
Well, Kathleen, this has been wonderful to talk to you. It's wonderful to hear about this experience. Thank you for your work and your commitment to kind of bringing forward this history. Thanks for talking to me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm David Domke. I'm chair of the Department of Communication at the University of Washington. I've been talking with a colleague here, Kathleen Fearn-Banks, for one of our chair chats. Thanks for joining us.